Hi, this is Couples Therapy Bites with the Mitchells.
I'm Stephen.
I'm Erin, and we're sort of doing something we did back in October. I don't know that we've actually done anything since then. But the idea of sharing stories. Again, it's a heavy story. We do have other stories other than hard and heavy ones. But it seems, as a culture, to me anyway, that we have a harder time telling hard stories. It seems that way to me because it feels that way for me. I have a hard time sharing hard stories, so I'm anxious. I want to be doing this. I want to remember this story. I want to share this story, and I want that shift to start being made. And if I want to see that happening, I have to start doing it myself. So I'm going to share with you the story that happened to us, our family, 2 years ago on December 4th, today, on December 4th. Anything you want to add before I go?
No, I think, yeah, the whole idea is that couples are stronger when they can tell their stories and tell their stories together. And this is our attempt to tell a hard story together as a couple. So
it seemed like Christmas decorations came earlier this year. It seemed like middle of November I was seeing them, and I hate it, and I understand it. Christmas decorations fill your home not with just beauty and fresh pine scents, but also, for me anyway, they fill me and my home with memory, sensory memory. Some I love, and others I'd love to forget. Like each of the ornaments on our tree, it's a memory of one thing or another. All of our baby's first Christmas ornaments, even the miscarriages. The stained glass seal that my dad always had in his window, even on the day he died. My own first Christmas ornament, a little panda in a stocking with my name embroidered on it. All the ornaments my mom gave us every single Christmas that somehow represented our year. The ornaments that once upon a time had decorated my grandmother's tree. Every year we would hang ornaments on the tree and we would tell their story. We would remember. We were hanging our memories and our most precious stories on the promise of an evergreen, that always life. Christmas is mystical in that way, like somehow our memories are still hoped for. Somehow past, present, and future come together in some wonderful way. We listen to old Christmas carols and all at once feel deep sadness, peace, and hope. Every Christmas, for as long as I can remember, my mom and I would wrap presents with the smell of cookies baking in the oven, watching White Christmas, eagerly anticipating when Vera Ellen would tap out Mandy. I'd rise up and join in and we'd make it a duet. Magical falls short of what Christmas is. Who wouldn't want to start it sooner? But then, 2 years ago, Christmas took on yet another layer for me. Death. 2 years ago, I too was itching to get our house ready for the season. Yes, even in November. Normally around then we'd be flying into Atlanta to spend Thanksgiving with Stephen's brother and sister and their families. A time filled with fun and connection and lots of cousin playtime. But 2 years ago, we had had a baby that was just a few weeks old, and we decided we would not be flying with him, and instead we'd be staying home in Denver. My mom flew out to be with us for the week before Thanksgiving, and she flew out the morning of to be with my brother and the rest of her siblings and their families. Thanksgiving morning, my husband's took the older boys, Leeds and Ezra, on a super easy mountain biking trail, and they did great. I stayed with our new and sleeping Coulter. It was a simple and sweet Thanksgiving. Then we geared up for December, when Stephen can embrace getting our house ready. We put up our tree, we hung our outside lights, we got the stockings hung on the mantle, we made cookies with each boy in their personalized Christmas aprons. My mom sent those. Cookies were a very important part of our Christmas, so she wanted to make sure they were dressed for the part. We decorated the tree, we made advent calendars to help us count on the days until my mom, my uncle, and my brother would come to Denver to spend Christmas with us. Christmas was usually at my mom's with all of the extended families. It was sweet and festive, but again, we just had a baby and we needed Christmas to come to us. So we began marking off the days. December 1st, December 2nd, December 3rd. And then on the 4th, we were putting Leeds and Ezra to bed, and Stephen got a call from a hospital in Georgia that said that his dad, George, had been in a serious car accident. He'd been put on a ventilator, but someone needed to get there immediately because it didn't seem like he was going to make it very long. Stephen called his brother Caleb in Phoenix and his sister Esther, who lived nearby. They each began making arrangements to make their way there. Then Stephen begins to look at flights for all of us to get there as soon as we can as well. Coulter will be getting on a plane after all, but for now he can sleep until we need to leave for the airport. Our middle-izer says he's tired and wants to go to sleep, but our oldest, Leeds, he wants to stay awake. Leeds knows what death is, but he doesn't understand all the ins and outs of what's going on. Like, Mom, what is a ventilator? How does one work? Dad, what happens at a funeral? After peppering Stephen for a while he was trying to make arrangements, I told Leeds maybe he should stick with me and help me pack, and I could try to answer his questions. We texted with my mom about her meeting us in Atlanta to help with the boys while Stephen and I are at the hospital. Leeds isn't just curious tonight, he's also excited. Not about his granddaddy being hurt, although unfortunately we're not close with Stephen's dad. Stephen and George have always had a difficult relationship, and the boys have really only seen him once or sometimes 2 times a year. They don't really know him, but still Leeds is feeling sadness about what's happening. More than likely it's just as much about seeing Stephen this sad and so distant. The distance he's gone to since learning that his dad, learning about his own dad as much about George himself. But the excitement is clear. We'll get all that wild cousin time in after all. So we walk around picking up our disaster of a house, trying to pick out what all we might need for all 5 of us for our trip southeast. I feel mostly like we're walking in circles because of the situation that was our laundry. I can't find anything. On one of our circles, Leeds and I have just passed through the dining room. Stephen's at the table, having just booked our flights. He lets us know we need to get packed and get moving, and we'll have to walk into our beautifully Christmas-decorated living room, and then my brother calls. He and my mom have been together celebrating his birthday, and I assume my mom wants to know if we've booked our flights and when she should meet us. I answer the phone on speaker, and the first thing my brother says is, "Mom's dead." Then my feet stop working. I stop right at the edge of our black and white geometric rug, which is right in front of our perfectly decorated Christmas tree and all of our stockings on the mantle. My mothering instinct kicks in and I immediately take him off speaker, but not because I believe my son just learned his Alma died. I take him off because I don't want him to hear my brother making a sick joke when his granddaddy really is dying in a hospital. So I put the phone to my ear, but immediately I hear the panic. And there's talking in the background. And now paramedics want to ask me questions. I don't even think I muttered what before I'm telling paramedics what I know about her medication, which is that she isn't on any that I know of. I walk slowly towards the back bedroom away from where Ezra and Coulter are sleeping. Leeds does, as he has previously been told to do, and he sticks to me. But I'm finding it harder and harder to breathe. So I tell him he should go to Daddy and be with him as I sort things out with Luke. He does go to Stephen, but of course as soon as he tells him that Alma's died, Stephen comes running to me. I tell him what I know. Luke's found her unresponsive. He did CPR for 10 minutes until the paramedics arrived. The paramedics are there now. He doesn't know how long she'd been lying there when he found her. He's certain she's dead already. It's happening so fast and so impossibly slow. There's a transition at my mom's house, and they're moving her to the hospital, and Luke and I get off the phone. He needs to figure out things on that end, and I need to go be with Leeds. We get off the phone, and I realize at some point I've fallen to my knees. I pry myself off the floor, and I go to the living room, beautifully lit by all of those twinkling lights, but I can't find Leeds. It doesn't take but a second for it to hit us that we left him. Our 6-year-old's been left by himself for minutes as Stephen and I rushed to be together. He's so scared and sad and confused and so very alone. He sought refuge in the one place he could. He's nestled behind the Christmas tree, as if he's hoping it will hold him while his parents are not. Devastation. I don't know how I draw him out. I don't know what we say or how I apologize. I do know Stephen stays with him, and then I go back to the bedroom to make calls to get my aunts and uncles to go and be with Luke at the hospital. I text my sisters-in-law and my 3 lifelong friends. They each send back responses, although I don't know what any of them say. I find my brain has stopped registering information. But the one who lives in St. Louis, Erin, sets out to go be there at the hospital with my brother and my mom. Luke calls back they've arrived at the hospital. And they're working on her there. He doesn't know much, but he wants to call and keep me updated. We stay on the phone, silent maybe, I don't remember. Then they come and tell us there's nothing left to do. She's died. I ask him to FaceTime me because I have to see her. When her dad died years prior, I didn't get to see him, and I know I need to see her. He pops up on the screen and then he turns the camera towards her. She's lifeless on a stretcher, already swollen, already obviously not there. But still, she's the body of a woman who grew my own life within her, the body of the woman I depended on from my first breath until her last. She was joy. She held us in her heart. No one rejoiced more in our triumphs. She did not shy away from her own pain and loss, or ours. You have to let your pendulum swing, she'd say, and she did. She had known heartache and devastating loss, and she felt every bit of it, and it did not swallow her up. And she loved in such a way it seemed love itself was tangible. And every other second of every other day, she skipped and sang silly songs. And now she's lying lifeless in a hospital so far away, too far. The reality of what's happening is settling in now, and suddenly I need to be there. I need to be there with her in her death. I want to know her even in her death, so that maybe somehow I can begin to know myself in her death. Immediately upon seeing her, I panic about the blue tube still in her mouth, holding it unnaturally open. Luke, I have to get it out. She'd hate it. He complies. He begins to look for someone to help. Then as he walks away, no, don't go. Just stay. And then I realize I'm flailing. It doesn't matter if there's a tube in her mouth or not. You don't have to walk away. I just want to be with her, and she doesn't care. I speak to her. I don't know what I say. Luke is kind and gentle, and he lets me have time and space, even as he is actually holding time and space for me and her in these minutes. I don't say goodbye. I'm coming as quickly as I can. There will be time for that. I tell him we'll be there as soon as we can and get off the phone. It's time to make our way. We abandon our packing efforts and leave with whatever it is that we have thrown into our bags, which turns out to be not much, but we did pack swimsuits for the Midwest in December. We need to wake Coulter and Ezra and tell them the news, but I don't know how. My mom was like the sun and the moon and stars to our family. She was life, stability, and beauty. How do you tell your boys they've lost the sun, the moon, and the stars? How do we explain to our oldest, the woman who taught him how to greet the day each and every morning, will no longer be there to welcome in a new day? How do you tell your middle he's lost his birthday buddy? And how can I tell my brand new baby he just lost one of the greatest opportunities to know love when he had just begun to taste it? How do you help your children make sense of devastating loss when you haven't begun to process for yourself? We wake Coulter so I can nurse him before we have to put him in his car seat. And then as soon as Ezra opens his eyes, Leeds begins to say, "He doesn't know yet, Mom. He doesn't know yet, Dad." Leeds is already in the new world that is life without Amma, and he can't handle being there without Ezra. He can't stand to see Ezra have to live one more second in a false reality. We need to get moving, and we have to tell him. He went to bed thinking we're flying to Atlanta because Granddaddy's been in a car accident, and he's waking up to a different universe entirely. So we tell him. He grows strangely quiet, and we're all quiet now. I find I actually can't speak. When my silent tears streaming down my face are turning into the convulsing kind, I realize I must have been crying for a long time now, from that first second Luke called. My throat constricts, and I'm suddenly aware how full and sore and lumpy my throat is. My mom died. Stephen's dad's on a ventilator. We're driving to the airport. We get to the airport, but we don't have a lot of time, so Stephen passes up the parking lot we normally park in, the one that's as far away and as cheap as they come. He drives right up to the airport itself and parks at what's the equivalent to their front door. We not only don't have time, we also don't have the emotional space or energy to deal with parking shuttles. We don't have the emotional energy to make any effort at all. We're boarding our flight and Stephen's brother's on it. His fastest route from Phoenix to Atlanta happened to be through Denver, and we all give a strange greeting. Stephen's across the aisle from me with Leeds, who's finally fallen asleep in his lap. And I'm holding 10-week-old Coulter, and Ezra's sleeping in my lap. I don't stop crying. Occasionally, Stephen looks over and we stare at one another, broken-hearted, both of us, so confused, so full, so sad. What is happening to our little family feels like too much. I can't grasp it all. And at our looks across the aisle, we feel this. We can share this. We walk our tired little boys off the plane where it's now the next day. No one wants to greet this day. We have very little time before we need to catch our next flight to Chicago, but we have to get our baggage. We don't have enough time to get out of the terminals to get to the baggage claim. It wasn't passed on because we were actually on 2 separate flights booked separately. One flight booked when just Stephen's dad was dying. The next 2 hours later, when it was Stephen's dad and my mom. My mom. It's just all I can think. Memories pass in flashes, surges of panic. My mom. A new day. The first day where my mom isn't. And I can't bear it. The reality of it continues to grow in my throat, and somehow I haven't run out of tears. It's the middle of the night when we're realizing the steps involved in retrieving our luggage. We decide we have to leave it in Atlanta and figure that out later. Or never. We can probably do without the 17 t-shirts and the swimsuits that made the trip. We have to make it to Chicago now so we can make it to the next flight. We fall all night and then arrive in Chicago around 6 a.m. We're in Illinois now. I have a new surge of dread. This is my home state. Belleville, Illinois. It's where my mom lived, where she died. And I don't want to be here. We get off the plane and walk towards our next flight. It's morning now and there's people. There are so many people. And the airport's decked out in Christmas decorations. And I'm walking and sobbing now. I'm trying to be quiet for my boys, but they know. People are staring and wondering what kind of hell we're walking through. It's a winter wonderland, and I truly feel like I might explode in the merriment of it all. We get to our gate, and I feel thankful there's a Starbucks nearby. We have allergies, but they have oatmeal, and our boys can eat that. The line is so long, but Coulter's sleeping in the carrier, and Leeds, our biggest oatmeal lovers, come with me. We get to the front of the line. Through the muffled sobs, I order coffee and oatmeal. The woman's face actually goes pale as she says, "We're out of oatmeal this morning." And I honestly can't think of anything to say. So with tears streaming down my face, I look down at Leeds and then back at her and then back at him. And then she says, "But there's a place down that way that has some. You should go there." So we do. It helps the boys to have some food. We get on the next flight. And we arrive in St. Louis. I don't want to be here. We get off the plane and we see Luke. I don't think we say anything. I think we just hug and cry. Then I ask how we got here, and he tells me that my friend Erin brought him. My friend who went to the hospital. She's waiting in the car for us, with car seats and everything. And I suddenly realize I don't remember making any arrangements, and I don't know how she knew what we'd need. Which was everything. But she did know, and she showed up, and I feel a little safer in the universe again. We get into her car, and she asked if we needed to stop anywhere before we go to my mom's house. And we do, because we don't have clothes or toothbrushes or anything for life, for a funeral, or maybe 2 funerals. We haven't been able to be in touch with Esther since we've been flying all night, but Stephen does get in touch when we land, and there's not good news. Things have only been confirmed for the worse, and he has no brain activity. Stephen and his siblings make a plan that we'll turn the ventilator off tonight after we put our boys to sleep, so we can FaceTime and kind of be there too, even if just virtually. We stop at the gallery in St. Louis to buy a dress and a suit, and as we pull in, I have flashes of my mom taking the boys there to ride around in fire truck carts. She often watched them on the first shift when they'd wake up around 5. She'd be waiting at our house so we could stay asleep. Some mornings they'd be awake before anything was open. Even though the stores would be closed and the mall that early, it was still open, so she'd push them around in those little fire truck carts. The carts that only the grandparents rent. They'd stop at the Ghirardelli's window and watch the woman make chocolate-covered strawberries. And they'd get so excited to tell me that almost always she'd come out and give them one. They'd go to fountain throughout the mall, and they'd be mesmerized. She'd push them around, silly and wildly, and she'd sing songs, and everyone would laugh till they hurt. And now here we are, pulling in for her funeral clothes. My mind is colliding past, present, and I'm feeling sick. We try to be present to the boys and acknowledge these things to them. But I can't say how it's going. I don't even know what we're saying or what they're saying in return. Truly the only thing I do remember is that when we got there, our boys together tell us that they've decided they'd like to wear ties. I think Alma would like them in ties. We find and buy them ties, and they're right. She would think them so handsome and precious. From the Galleria, there's no place left to go but to her house, the house I grew up in, and the house that easily has better and more magical toys than our own home. Since we moved away from St. Louis, we've never visited Alma's house without fanfare. The kitchen would be stocked with all of our favorite foods. There were always streamers, signs, balloons, dining room table full of presents. The very best thing we'd come to expect was Alma herself. And now we're driving towards her house, which will have the groceries she bought, her shampoo in the shower, her mascara in her drawer, her bed always perfectly made, but there will be no Alma. Each mile that draws us near makes it harder and harder to breathe. I see it. Then we pull into the driveway and we're walking in, and I walk to her bedroom. And now the second time, I hit the floor in the last 12 hours. She'd thrown a red, rough sweater she always wore over the foot of her bed. I pull it to my nose sobbing. Erin has stayed, and she's taken the boys into the front yard to play. I don't know how long I sobbed there. Stephen's with me. I don't know how long I take in her already fading scent. I don't know. But eventually I get up and I walk around. Somehow it already feels hollow. I walk into the Christmas tree room, which really is the best room in her house. It's what we actually call that room, because somehow all year it holds magic. And it's also the only time of year we ever use it. I walk in and look at her tree. It's standing up in the usual corner, but the boxes of ornaments sit underneath. It has lights on it, but just a few strands. She had started but had not finished decorating her tree that night. My own tree had become my son's safe place during his darkest night, and my mom's tree has immediately become a symbol of an unfinished Christmas. 2 years later, I see Christmas decorations and immediately feel all of this, all over again, so intensely. The decorations assault me. I don't know how to celebrate anymore, and I don't know how to be in the merriment and the drama. I say I don't know how, but I do. It's called tension. It's called holding the tension, and I hate it. But what choice do I have? I refuse to be merry and not acknowledge the devastating loss my family has known. And I refuse to numb out and escape the hope that is an ornament on a tree. So what choice do I have now? In this new planet on which I live, I have to hold tension. Today, I will be honest, it feels heavy, because it is. If my mom was here, she'd say, let your pendulum swing. Today be sad, so swing it well. And today, celebration feels too heavy, so I won't. Maybe tomorrow. But I will put up my tree, slowly and gently, ornament by ornament, and I will sob heavy and holy tears. And I will celebrate the hope that is all this life and death, and hang it on an evergreen. New life, death, and Christmas. Oh, that's a lot, huh?
Yeah. But honestly, I mean, your mama would be proud. Just letting your pendulum swing.
Yeah, I think she would. Thank you for watching. I'll write more about what my intention is.
Yeah, and we'll tell the story. I'm going to tell my portion of the story as well. Then we'll come back and kind of come back together and talk about it. But
thank you for being present to mine. I do hope it will encourage you to be present to yours.
Yeah.
As honoring to my mom.
Yeah.
Just look on and and all